All right. I think everything is going now. I think everything's working anyway. We got camera, we got the microphone, the lights going, so I think we're all good. Let's jump into it here, and let me get the disclaimers out of the way. Normal ones, you guys hear them every week probably, but just in case there's somebody new here and somebody hadn't been here before, pretty much anything is open for discussion. I really don't care. We can talk about controversial topics like politics and religion. The only things I ask is you be polite, you be family friendly. Don't start cussing anybody. Don't call anybody names. Don't be hateful with anybody just because they have a different opinion than you. There's no reason we can not all be friends, even though we may disagree on some things. Sorry, I got my glasses all dirty. So while I'm cleaning those off, I'll finish up with this. So the way this works is I'm pretty much every Thursday. This is where I am, 7 o'clock Central Time. I do my best to respond to every chat that comes through on the live chat. Try to give a response to it. Unless you're talking to each other, sometimes you guys carry on conversations with each other. I tend to skip over those. It doesn't bother me. I don't necessarily get in the weeds on all that kind of stuff. If I do happen to miss your comment, feel free to ask again, because sometimes I fail to get them all. I do my best, but sometimes I miss one. So let's jump into it. We got Joe Sandy here from Southeast Michigan. Good to see you. It says, am I the only one here? No, I don't think you were, but you got a couple more people talking now. Joy Guthrie from Western Oregon, good to see you. AZ Highland Homestead says, howdy, y'all. Howdy to you, too. And Andy from Southwest Michigan says, hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing well. Hopefully you are, too. Chester Hickman, good to see you. Caesar says, hey, Chris, saw your video on the baby rabbits. Very nice. Well, thank you. Yeah, it was the biggest litter she's had. I don't really know why. She had a bigger litter than ever before, but she did. That was her biggest one. So pretty nice turnout on those. They're doing well. Haven't lost a single one yet. That's good. Pretty much past that. I don't think I will now, unless somebody breaks in and lets my rabbits go again, like happened last time. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Hog Waller Creek Homestead says, howdy y'all from Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Don from South Central Illinois says, I just locked down 12 of 15 eggs that had come in the UPS smashed. So the eggs were smashed, or the box was kind of smashed? So I don't know exactly how. Anyway, good luck with your hatch. Hopefully that goes well. I'm sure that not all the eggs were smashed, or you wouldn't be going into lockdown with them, but apparently you might have lost a few, and I'm sorry to hear that. Woodtick says, good evening to everyone. Good evening to you too. Kenneth from, he just says hi from Kenneth Meggers. I think that's it. Meggers, is that right? Anyway, hello to you too. Easy Homes, Highland Homestead says, God bless you, Chris. Got 58 American breast chickens hatching tomorrow. Chicken tractors on pasture have replaced our quail racks. Well, God bless you too. And you said they've replaced your quail racks. So did you get rid of your quail completely going with chickens? I'm not really sure how to read that exactly, but either way, good luck with your hatching. Hopefully it goes really well. I've heard good things about those. I've never actually raised them myself, but I've heard really good things about them. So hopefully it goes well. Joe Sandy says, I set 46 quail eggs Sunday. Hang on a second. Go see what this is. Make sure it's not anything urgent. I don't think it is. It's not. Okay, Joe Sandy, I set 46 quail eggs Sunday. I'm using a new incubator. Well, good luck. Hopefully that hatch goes well for you too. 46, you should get a pretty decent hatch out of those. Hog Waller Creek Homestead says, I have a 1-year-old bob white quail, and they laid a few eggs late fall, then stopped. When will the quail start laying again? Should be. I don't know a whole lot about bob quail. I've never raised bob whites myself. They're not as prolific of a layer, from my understanding, as like Coturnix, which pretty much lay an egg a day. But really, they're still just like any other bird. They're dependent on really the amount of light that they get per day. So you really got to have about 14 hours a day of light. That's what's going to get them laying again. If you don't have lights on the hutch already, we're getting pretty close to that in daylight, I think, but we're not quite there yet. I'm not sure what it is in your area exactly, but whenever the days get to about 14 hours a day, it'll probably take them a couple of weeks at least before they lay any eggs, and then they'll start going at that point. If you keep lights on them, and I don't know, again, I'm not an expert on bob whites necessarily because I raise Coturnix. I haven't raised bob whites, but at least with the Coturnix, and I'm sure with the bob whites too, if you were to keep lights on them all year long, you would keep them laying all year long. But now that they've taken a break, it'll probably take, once they hit 14 hours a day of light, or 14 hours of light a day, there we go, it'll probably take about 2 weeks before you start seeing any kind of egg production out of them. Andy Rabbit's here, says hello, good to see you. Don says UPS smashed the box of 30 eggs, so I salvaged 12, wiped off 3, but those 3 didn't develop. The seller sent another 30 in another incubator by UPS, and those came in fine. Sent another 30 in another incubator. Surely the seller didn't send you an incubator with eggs in it. I think you got another 30. You've got them in another 30 or another incubator, and they came in fine. Well, good. That was good of the seller to replace them, and good luck on both those hatches. Buck Reynolds says, hello, everyone from Claremore, Oklahoma. Hope everyone is well. I know where Claremore is. That's not too far from me. That was, wasn't that the home of Roy Rogers? Was he from Claremore? I think he was. I may be wrong on that, but I think there's at least a Will Rogers Museum or something there, if I remember right. Woodtick says, question, I used to get 5 eggs from my breeder. I took out 1 rooster from my breeder pen, and now I get 6 eggs daily. Why would that be? Well, I don't know. I mean, you got could be a number of different reasons there. It probably has nothing to do with removing the rooster necessarily. It could be just took the chicks or the birds long enough. You know, as they get older, they tend to get a little bit more consistent with their egg laying. You might have had, maybe that rooster was, you know, an egg eater and he would eat one of the eggs every day or something like that. I find some, you know, busted open eggshells in my hutches every once in a while. Probably not from the birds actually eating them, but maybe trampling on them and crushing them and, you know, getting them all dirty so they're not super obvious to see. Maybe something like that. I mean, who knows? There's a lot of different factors that go into that. I don't know that it had anything to do with removing the rooster, but maybe. I don't know why that would make a difference, unless maybe he was too aggressive and stressing all the birds out. But then you would think your egg production would be vastly different, not just from 5 to 6, but who knows? AZ Highland Homestead says, yep, jumbo Coternics are what we used to raise in a 5-level hatching time tray. Now we raise the breasts on pasture and the new homestead property. Well, also at the new homestead property. Okay, well, that works out. Yeah, no reason not to. If that's what you want to do, go for it. Life Done Cheap with Lee says, hello to everybody. Hello to you too. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hog Waller Creek Homestead says, thank you for the information. You're absolutely welcome. Andy Rabbit says, my hutch that didn't have any added lights on are starting to lay. I found an egg a day for the last 2 days. Yeah, it's getting that time where they should start laying just by natural light. Bart McDonald says, checking in from Jane, Missouri. How about that weather? Yeah, no kidding. I know exactly where Jane is, too. That's not that far either. Just almost to the Arkansas border. But not that far from me. Probably 45-minute drive. Yeah, the weather, I mean, it's actually been pretty nice. A little windy, but pretty nice, honestly. Can't complain. Joe Sandy says, let's see, my second hen that was laying bloody eggs up and died yesterday. The only issue was bloody eggs, no prolapse, just a bloody vent. That was 2 in 2 weeks. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. My guess is that probably was some kind of internal injury because of that, those eggs. They may have been a little bit oversized or something like that, even though you didn't see any external prolapse. It's probably something similar to that was going on. I'm sorry that happened. Hopefully you don't have any more issues. See, Sax Place says, Southwest Ohio checking in. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And then we got Arizona Highland Homestead saying hi to everybody. One at a time, but getting there. Alan Pulley says, hello from VA. First time in the chat. I received my weather station this afternoon. Can't wait to set it up. Thank you. You are absolutely welcome. Alan's the one that won the weather station in last week's drawing. Wasn't on the live, but we did connect afterwards, and we got that shipped out to him. And looks like you got it. So I'm glad to hear you got it. I was wondering about that today. And then don't forget to update the firmware. You'll hear that kind of coil whine. If you watch the video, I talked about that in there. So update the firmware. That'll get rid of that. Susan says, how bad are snakes with quail? I have put mine on my porch, so wondering about snakes. Well, I think that probably depends a little bit on how many snakes you have in your area. I mean, I've had snakes get into my quail hutch one time, and into the brooder box a couple of times. They're out in my shed, but not a real big issue. If you have a lot of snakes around, it might draw some in. These were just black snakes, just rat snakes, so they're not anything dangerous. And both times they ate a quail or two, but nothing major. Joe Sandy says the two hens had identical issues, was strange, and it started after a couple of days after the raccoon attack. Probably just coincidence. Could be. I don't know. There may be something related to that. It's hard to say for sure, honestly. Hopefully it's just that's it, and you're done with those problems. Sax Place says, my first hatching of shipped eggs, 19 out of 36 hatched, 52%. 2 died, so 47% live chickens. I think it's supposed to be chicks, but probably a typo. Well, that's not terrible. I mean, you could be. I mean, 50%ish is pretty decent for hatched eggs, or for shipped eggs, I should say. I can usually get a little bit more net out of them, but not a lot. So, that's really not bad. I wouldn't complain about that. Andy Rabbit says 1/2 inch hardware cloth can help with snakes. Yeah, and I do have hardware cloth around mine. They got into my hutch because I had a gap in the top where I'd run the cord for the heated water. Heated water wasn't in there, and I didn't go back through and staple that back down and secure it, so he got in that way. But after he ate something just caught my attention. After he ate a bird, he couldn't get back out, so I had to catch him and release him. Let's see. Life Done Cheap with Lee says, what's your routine for dealing with rigor mortis? Okay, so I think you're talking about like after you process an animal, whether it be a rabbit or a quail or something like that. I usually I like to dry age mine. I do not put them in ice water like a lot of people do. I think that just ruins the meat, in my opinion. It's better, I think, to dry age them. So I usually will stack them up in a bowl, paper towel or something over the top of them just loosely. Just to kind of keep things from getting in and out, in it, like, crumbs and that kind of stuff in the refrigerator. I put them in my refrigerator usually for a couple of days, 4 days maybe for rabbits. The quail are usually a little bit quicker, usually about 2 days maybe, until, the rigor mortis leaves. So you can kind of tell, you go to moving them around, they're not super stiff anymore. So you'll kind of know when that happens. And then I just package them up and put them in the freezer. That's pretty much it. It's nothing crazy. If you don't have room in the refrigerator, you could definitely put them in like plastic bags. Put them in an ice chest. I don't like to rest my meat in water. I like to keep it from getting too wet. So you could do that way too. Let's see. Sax Place says 10 out of 36 had no development. 10 eggs out of the 36 that were shipped to you had no development. I don't know. That could mean a number of different things. It could mean that they weren't fertile. People tend to jump to that right away and say, oh, that means they're not fertile. Well, not necessarily. I mean, they could have been fertile and just not developed because of bacterial issues or because of whatever. Maybe they just weren't, maybe the conditions just weren't right exactly for them. There's so many different factors that go into that. It's hard to know for sure exactly why. But that's not terrible. You still did okay. Emma Bell says, hey, Chris and everyone, hope all is well. Everything's going okay here. Hopefully it is for you too. Arizona Highland Homestead says, we keep 1/2 inch hardware cloth around the bottom of our chicken tractors. Haven't lost one to predators. Yeah, that works pretty well. As long as you don't have any major, like huge issues with like coyotes and things like that, they can go through hardware cloth. It's a little bit of work, but they can get through it. But for the most part, that's usually enough to keep the predators out. Alan Ploy says, have you ever canned quail meat? No, I've never actually done that. I always kind of have a weird hang up with canned meat. I shouldn't. I should get over it. But I never can meat. I always just freeze it. Joe Sandy says, thinking of getting a rabbit just for garden fertilizer as a pet for the granddaughter. But it would have to live in a hutch outside. I need to build the hutch. Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of choices you can do there. If you're looking for a pet rabbit, you're probably better off with like some of the pet varieties. You can still definitely have a hutch outside for them. Just realize that they're going to be a little bit more prone to things like sore hocks and stuff. So you would probably want to be a little bit more, make sure that they have plenty of room that they can get off the wire if you're going to have a wire hutch. But you could definitely go with like more of a traditional meat breed. It's just the meat breeds tend to not be as cuddly and easy to handle as the pet breeds do. So sometimes, you may look at the pet breeds. But anyway, it's something you can kind of consider. They're great to have around for that. They produce, quite a bit of manure, and it is fantastic fertilizer. So you kind of get more than just a pet out of it. You get the fertilizer, like you said. AZ Highland Homestead says, we rest all poultry meat for 3 days. Homegrown lamb meat rests for 7 days. Yeah, if I had like a walk-in freezer, that would be fantastic. Or a big walk-in cooler of some kind, then I could, rest bigger animals in. I'd love to have that, but I don't. I do the same thing with chickens. I tend to put them in coolers because whenever we process chickens, we always have too many. I can't fit them in the fridge. So I just put them in coolers with ice, put them in bags so they're not directly in the water as the ice starts melting, but put them on ice in the coolers. And yeah, I do for 3 days at least, sometimes 4 or 5 even, if I'm busy. Joe Sandy says, I did my quail hutch like yours, so hoping to figure out a rabbit hutch. Yeah, they're not too hard. You could do, it depends. Again, if you get like meat rabbits or something like that, yeah, just buy the cage because the cages from Tractor Supply, the Doomore cages, I think they are. It wasn't very much more. It was just a little bit more than it would have been to buy the material to build the cages myself. And it saved me all the effort of building the cages, cutting wire, bending it, all that kind of stuff. So it was well worth the investment there. And then you can just hang it under any kind of shelter, just build a cheap. My rabbit hutches it's just a frame basically. And I just put tarps around it to keep the wind off of them. We got Nuno Mello, I think it is, or Mello. I don't know. Maybe I'm pronouncing that right. Says, hey, from Fairhaven, Massachusetts. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Sax Place says, thanks for the advice. I won 30 eggs on Terry's Live. So I have them coming from HP Murray. So got another try. Going to use a different incubator. Well, good luck with that. I hope that goes well. Joe Sandy says, are there any meat breeds that are tamish? It depends a little bit on how much you handle them too. They're all going to tame up a little bit depending on handling. What is going on here? I've got having some issues here. Sorry. There we go. Now things are working right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it depends again. Like I said, how much you handle them, they'll all tame up a little bit. The thing with meat rabbits is they tend to get pretty big. And because they're not necessarily bred for the temperament and stuff like that, they can be hard to handle. You pick up a 10-pound rabbit and it goes to kick a little bit. It doesn't take much for it just scratches the heck out of you. So, they're not necessarily, in my opinion, the best for having for pets. But I know people that have them and have had good luck with them. They don't usually keep them outside in hutches. They make them more like house rabbits. But it can be done. Andy Rabbit says a Havana rabbit makes a good pet. So there you go. There's a suggestion for it too. And there's Verna. Verna says, hey, Chris. Hello to you too. Joe Sandy says, I don't want Rex because of sore hawk issues, but they are pretty. Yeah, they're pretty and they have super nice fur. Rex fur is some of the best. But yeah, I know what you're saying with the sore hawk issues. That's a little bit of a concern for sure. Andy says, I was just sitting here thinking where has Verna been lately? Yep, I've been wondering that too, but you got your own life, you got things going on. Zort says, question, do you rest quail prior to freezing? Yes. Yeah, I kind of just went through that, but you may not have heard it. It's okay. I'll go through it again. Yeah. Usually about 3 days-ish, 2-3 days, something like that. It just depends. You can go up to a week. I just put them all in a bowl, cover it loosely with a paper towel just to keep things like crumbs and stuff from falling in it, stick it in the fridge. Let it go for about 3 days usually until rigor mortis has left, until it's no longer super stiff or anything like that, and then it's good to freeze. Do the same thing with rabbits. They usually go for about 3 or 4 days. I say 3 days with the quail. Usually they're done in 2 days, but it just depends on how busy I am. If it's during the week and I'm working, a lot of times they get left in there for 3 days. Verna says usually a few days until rigor mortis leaves. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Sax Place says my best pet meat rabbits were Flemish Giants, but they were 15 to 20 pounds, LOL. Yeah, I've heard good things about Flemish Giants, that they're pretty mellow and easy to handle as well, even though they are huge. They get really big. Arizona Highland Homestead says, we don't have a walk-in cooler, but got a perfect size 2x5 by 2x5 by 5 vertical freezer from Home Depot for $350. It has a dial for freeze or refrigerator, and we use a cooler to hang lamb quarters. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good way to do it. Arizona Highland Homestead says, got to go. Bless you all. Thanks for all your great info. As always, Chris. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Thank you for joining us. Andy says, I didn't have to do the supervised visit tonight, so I'm sitting here watching and eating spaghetti dinner and enjoying. Nice. Get a little bit of a break, huh? Andy Rabbit says, silver foxes can make good pets. I'm sure they could, actually. My silver foxes are easier to handle than, like my New Zealand's. Excuse me. But they are still a pretty big rabbit, and they do still scratch. Especially if you don't handle them a lot. They tend to panic a little bit when you pick them up. They're not aggressive, but it's just kind of you're picking me up, and then they end up scratching you pretty good on the arms. Keone, I think it is. So Silver Fox and Champagne d'Argent are both very docile and like to be held in my experience. Again, if you're handling them quite regularly, that's going to make a big difference too. They're going to be a little bit more used to it, a little bit more calm whenever you do handle them. Verna says, I have another live I have to be on shortly, Dinosaur Omelet. I think we've talked about that before. I haven't really checked them out. Probably need to. Andy Rabbit says, I've caught myself holding 3 silver foxes in my arm before I think about the fact that I'm holding 3 rabbits in one arm. Yeah, no kidding. Verna says, that's what I love, or what I loved about the Havana rabbits. They're gentle, friendly, and tasty. Yeah. Joe Sandy says, farmer/breeder recommended Continental Giants, $100. I think not. Yeah, that's pretty pricey, isn't it? And Joe Sandy says, plus they eat 5 times as much. Yeah, that's definitely something to be considered. Honestly, if I was looking for a pet rabbit, I'd probably, unless you're specifically looking for meat rabbits, if you just want it for a pet and the fertilizer, I'd probably be looking at like the mini lops or something like that. Those things are way easy to handle. Let's see. Reflejos de Ahora, I think is how you pronounce that, says, hey, Chris, and everyone else. Chris, I mentioned in one of your live videos, but it was about to end, and I don't think you saw it. If you ever decide to get homing pigeons, I got you. Well, hey, I appreciate that. I don't know where you're located. If you're anywhere near Southwest Missouri, because I don't necessarily want to drive, 6 hours to pick up a pair of pigeons. I think about it pretty seriously from time to time. I'd have to build a hutch, and who knows, maybe I'll get into it sometime soon, because I just think homing pigeons are the coolest thing. Sax Place says, Joe Sandy, we raised mini breeds for 4-H. The best pets were Holland Lops, mini tops. Is that Lops? Mini Lops? And lion heads. The smaller ones like Netherlands and Polish seem skittish. Males seem to be more friendly than does. Well, I've noticed that too with pretty much all my rabbits. The bucks always seem to be a lot more friendly than the does, a lot easier to handle. I don't know why that is. Sexton Outdoors says, hello from Eastern Kentucky, getting my new meat rabbits tomorrow. Can't wait to get started back. Well, awesome. Good luck with that, and hopefully it goes well. Sax Place says, males are better than females for my pets. Yeah, I think so too, probably. Joe Sandy says, Verna would be for an outdoor pet and for the poop, not the meat, at least for now. Don wants to know which kind eats 5 times more. That'd be the Continental Giants, I believe. Joe Sandy says, and a mini lop can stay outdoors. Do the floppy ears cause any issues? I don't think so. I mean, I really don't know a lot about them. So, I mean, I haven't kept one, but they should be able to handle outdoors as well. Don wants to know if pigeons can live in a coop without being let out to fly. I think they can. I mean, I'm sure that they could. I'm sure that they could. Whether it's the best life form or not, I don't know. But once you get them, like from what I understand, because I haven't actually kept pigeons, but once you get them kind of acclimated where they know where their home and where their food is, I mean, they'll come right back. I mean, it's no reason to not let them fly a little bit. Joe Sandy wants to know, will males spray us? Some do. I mean, it's not super common, but it's not unheard of. And I don't know how big of an issue that is with the pet ones. Verna says males will spray anywhere. LOL. Yeah, could be. Andy Rabbit says lion heads are very good pets. So there you go. There's another one to look at. Refleo says I'm a bit far, but I can ship them to you no charge. Just a way to say thanks for what you do. From New Jersey, huh? Do they ship okay? I don't know. Maybe I'll take you up on that at some point. I'll let you know if I do decide to go ahead and go for pigeons. Sax Place says, Joe had a friend of mine with a mini lop buck indoors, acted like a dog, potty trained to a litter box, lived 12 years, great rabbit. Yeah, I've seen some mini lops that were just really fantastic pets. They were easy to handle. Like you said, kind of like dog, basically. Emma says, mini Rex are great pets for kiddos. In my experience, the fur is incredibly soft too, which makes handling them more likely with children too. I find males a lot calmer and less territorial also. Yeah, that's my experience with bucks, is that they are way easier to deal with usually. Zora says, I used to raise chinchilla rabbits. Can't seem to find them now. Guess they're now rare. Large litters, great mothers, gentle, and quick to fryers. I had a chinchilla rabbit once. It was the cutest babies ever. They're adorable when they're born. And nice rabbits. I mean, I liked it. Let's see. Emma says, I've had house trained mini Rexes to litter trays too. Yeah, I've heard that you can train them to a litter box. I don't see why that wouldn't work. Andy Rabbit says, the first Havana I got was a buck. I wanted his color for breeding into my lion head. After a few days, I fell in love with him. He got a name, and I had to get a few more Havanas. Yeah. And bucks are better pets. Yep, I agree. Don says, I think the lion heads are cute, but I'm wanting Andy's Havens. LOL. Can't take the lop ears. There's nothing wrong with that. Verna says all rabbits can be trained to litter boxes. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Joe Sandy says, I wish I could have one in the house. Hard no from the hubby. We'd have to wrap every wire in the house. There's a lot of wires in the house. That is the one thing about rabbits. They do chew. When I was a kid, we got a rabbit. This was back in the 80s. It was my sister's, and I think it was a lop ear. I can't remember exactly. But back in the 80s, you had water beds. Everybody had a water bed. Worst thing ever. But, still we had them. And that rabbit chewed up her bed. It was terrible. It chewed up everything. And it never was trained to a litter box. That could have been because we were kids and didn't do a very good job of training it. But, either way. Refleo says, Chris, they do ship just fine. Just let me know. Or I guess I will remind you once you mention it in your vids. LOL. Yep, I'll try to keep that in mind and try to get to work on a pigeon coop. I need to look into what I know you have to tag them. In my city, it's required anyway, but I don't know what's involved in that exactly. I'll have to figure all that out. Can't be that hard to do. Emma says that is true. Rabbits love cables. Joe Sandy says, is there any way to save the chats? I think it replays if you rewatch the video, but I'm not honestly sure if there's a way to download and save them. How would you do that? I don't know. I don't see an option to do that. Andy Rabbit says, oh my gosh, I got stuck in a waterbed when I was about 8+ months pregnant back in the early 90s. Yep, everybody of a certain age remembers waterbeds anyway. They're terrible. They were terrible. Verna says he would have to set it up on YouTube when he sets up the live stream. What now? I'm not sure I'm following on that one, Verna. Joe Sandy says, I got lots of good info and can never figure out how to save it. I guess you could probably just highlight every comment, copy it, and paste it into a document or something. I really don't know. I mean, if you're watching from your phone, that may be hard, but on the computer, you can do that. Or like I said, I think if you replay the video, the live chat should play back. And you can probably pause it and fast forward and get to certain parts, like that. Alan Pulley says, found some baby wild rabbits, eastern cottontail, in the flower bed this afternoon. Looked like they were about 2 to 3 days old. Yeah, it's that time of year. We're going to start finding them around here too. There's probably nests out there. I just haven't found them yet. More importantly, the dog hasn't found them yet. He has a tendency to find them. For some reason, they like to have their babies inside the nest where the dog can get to them. Makes no sense, but that's what they do. Anthony says, do you have to trim the rabbit's nails, and how often? If so, you don't really have to. I mean, it may be not a bad practice to do it occasionally, but you don't really have to. I pretty much never trim my rabbit's nails. Joe Sandy says, I've never seen them afterwards. Never seen the chats afterwards? Is that what you're saying? Don says to Andy Rabbit, didn't notice they had lop ears. I thought they were just shorter. They would be a hard no for me. No ears isn't a rabbit to me, kind of like a bird without wings. Yeah, that's weird. So Swanson says, copy and paste on the replay. That's a good idea. Emma Ball says, and FYI, if you're looking to have it indoors, litter training works for their peeing, but their pooping is involuntary, and they will still do that anywhere, in my experience. That's not good for litter training, huh? Cam says, screenshot parts of the chat. You could do that too. But I know you can just highlight. I mean, you just hold your mouse over and highlight. You can highlight chats and then copy it and paste it into like a Word document. Verna says, Chris, you would have to go to YouTube Studio and customize the live stream after you set it up. I would have to go there and customize it after I set it up to replay the chat. Is that what you're saying? To get it to replay? I wasn't sure if it was an automatic thing or not. Jacob says, hello to all. Hello to you too. Emma says, oh gosh, this rabbit chat has me wanting rabbits again. I so could, but I so shouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, I know the feeling. I get all wrapped up in things too. And like, oh no, I shouldn't do that. Let's see, I sent a video to somebody the other day. See if I can find it real quick on the, it won't matter. It was pretty funny. It was this guy like looking at these little miniature goats, and he's trying to figure out how he can buy them. And he's like, no, I can't. Oh, but I can't. No, I can't. You had to see it, but it was pretty funny. Andy Rabbit says, Don, lion heads do have ears. They have fluff around their heads, so hidden behind the fur. There you go. Rafleo says, Chris, it is best to get ready with a good coop before you decide to actually get them. Well, yeah, of course, I realize that. But no other requirements as far as banding them or anything like that. That's only when you join a club to compete. Well, I think that in my city, the ordinance says they have to be banded. You can have homing pigeons, but they have to be banded, I believe. I don't know. Joe Sandy says, yes, Chris, the chat is never shown if you replay chat, and that is what Verna's talking about. Okay, I'll see if I can figure out how to do that and get it done. I haven't noticed that before. I haven't tried. David says, is 6 weeks old ready to introduce crushed oyster shells to quail? You can. You probably don't need to. I mean, I never give crushed oyster shells to my quail. I never have. They only need 1.5% roughly of their diet to be calcium, and chances are your feed provides plenty of it, and you really don't need extra calcium for them. In fact, that can actually impact your hatch rates, because if you get too much calcium in there, it makes thicker, harder shells, makes it hard for the chicks to pip out of the egg. So you probably don't need to, but yeah, you could add it. If you're going to do that, offer it in a separate container, just let them have as much as they want of it. Don't mix it in with their feed. Steve says it does say download on your previous video. I think that's for downloading the video. And Verna says, yep, you have to click both boxes about the live stream. Okay. I'll see what I can figure out. Andy says, my hubby got his back surgery last Friday, and he's doing okay today. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Forgot about that. But, yeah, that is thanks for giving us an update on that. Glad to hear he's doing well. Joe Sandy says, Steve, I never noticed that. I'll check after tonight's. Andy Rabbit says, but, oh, my, he is kind of annoying me today. He needs to sit still. Yeah, that's what spouses are good for, isn't it? My wife doesn't annoy me. I probably annoy her quite a bit, but she doesn't annoy me. Verna says, Chris, you can always call me and I can walk you through it. Well, yeah, I may do that if I can't figure it out. I'm sure I can probably figure it out. I've just never looked. Joe Sandy says, Chris, it's funny. I've been watching your old lives. You used to say absolutely no talk about religion and politics. I used to say that. I don't remember, but I believe you. Now I just don't care. We can talk religion. We can talk politics. Like I said, I firmly believe we can have differences of opinions and still be friendly with each other, still be friends, still be nice. We don't have to be hateful and rude and all those things. So if you want to talk about that stuff, we can do it. And Dawn's saying to Andy, find a way to knock him out, put a sleeping pill snuck into his snack or something, like a dog. Joe Sandy says, I usually fall asleep listening to the older lives. Is that an insult? You'd saying my videos put you to sleep? Is that what you're saying? Steve says it charges you to download the video. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, you can download videos, but it does charge you, and there's no reason to, I don't think. Unless you plan on like watching videos when you're offline for some reason. Sack says, I've seen a lion head lop. Floppy ears with tons of fur. Not for me, LOL. And Cam says 100. I don't know what that means, but okay. Joe Sandy says, I agree, and I like talking about that stuff. Religion and politics? I don't mind talking about them. You know, I forget that some people get really upset about that, so I don't mind talking about it, but a lot of times people get all upset and, you know, start calling me names or something like that when I'm just having a discussion. Jacob says, I currently have quail chicks hatching out right now. Well, awesome. Congratulations. Hopefully you get a lot of them. Joe Sandy says, no insult. It's relaxing to me. I guess I'm weird. Well, maybe. Andy Rabbit says, your voice is relaxing. Oh, okay. I guess that's good. And Dawn says to Jacob, incubator TV is so much fun. I agree. Verna says, when religion or politics come into chat, I usually leave. Well, I'm sorry, Verna. Sorry. Like I said, I don't care. We can talk about them. It doesn't bother me a bit because I don't get upset just because somebody believes differently than me. Sometimes I'm confused. I'm like, I don't see how you could really buy that. But, you know, I don't get upset about it. Mostly because I've had different opinions most of my, you know, at different parts of my life, I felt differently about things. And, you know, I can understand that some people will feel differently about things than I do now. Emma says it's just a difference of opinion. Yep, I agree. Verna says, I don't like to be preached at, LOL. Well, hopefully you don't feel like you're being preached at. Joe Sandy says also, what about the hay? You used to say hay is absolutely necessary for the long fiber, but now you say it's not necessary. I want to do the right thing for the rabbit. I get one. Okay, yeah, I did at one time used to say, yeah, hay was necessary. I've changed my mind on that. It's not absolutely necessary. It's a good thing. If you want to provide hay to your rabbits, it's fine. You can do that. If you want the absolute best grow out rates, nothing but pellets. Just give pellets, nothing but pellets, no hay or anything like that. You'll get the absolute best grow out rates from them. But there's nothing wrong with giving them hay. It is good for them. The long fiber does help, but it's not gonna hurt them to not have it. So it's really however you want to do it. Zonidu says, I stopped getting upset when people talk about politics when I realized that both parties are wings of the same bird, so I'm not team red or blue. Hey, I understand that. Yeah, that's there is truth in that too. I used to feel more that way than I do now. I mean, I think there's some vast differences, but that's another story. But you're not wrong. David says, you catch the rabbit that escaped? No, I did not. That rabbit's probably long gone. I haven't seen him in a month or more. It's been a while, and I'm pretty sure he just something either caught him or he ran off, or he's probably got caught one way or the other. There's plenty of stray dogs, stray cats, foxes, coyotes. I mean, all kinds of things running around. I'm sure something got him. Joe Sandy says, my guinea pigs absolutely needed hay, or they could go into GI stasis. I think it's stasis, isn't it? Stasis. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, but yeah. Well, they're different. Rabbits don't need hay necessarily. It's not bad. I mean, it is good for them, but it's not a necessity that they actually have to have. Dawn says, I don't like it when people don't respect your beliefs and ram theirs down your throat. Yeah, I mean, I get that. At the same time, I think probably a lot of people get upset when somebody starts talking about, let's say, religion, for example. Is if you're a true believer, in your religion, you kind of feel compelled to tell other people about it, save them as well. It's not everybody does a great job of that. Sometimes people get a little bit all high and mighty, and it's not intended to be that way, but hopefully you don't take it that way from everybody. Verna says, yes, Sandy, Cooey need the hay. Rabbits love hay. It helps their teeth as well. Dawn says, like it's their way or no way. Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of understand that. Joe Sandy says, what about only hay and no pellets? I don't think I would feed only hay and no pellets. They need a little bit of variety in their diet. And hay is primarily just, depending on what kind you get, Timothy or alfalfa, one or the other. Pellets are primarily alfalfa, but it's not hay is not complete nutrition. I mean, it's fine to free feed them as much hay as they want, but also provide them with some pellets too. And Sachs Place says that you need pellets for minerals and vitamins. Yeah, I agree. Alan says, one of my Coturnics has an overgrown beak. It looks like it's the top part of the beak. It's curled down below what it should. Is it okay to clip it with dog clippers? Yeah, it's okay. You can do that. Just like you would their nails, basically, like a dog's nails. Just don't get into the quick of it, basically. You can clip it off. That's usually, older birds. A lot of times their beaks do grow out like that. And I've clipped them before and done just fine. A lot of times they'll just wear them off or break them off, break off the tip of that eventually. Andy Rabbit says, I have had rabbits on and off since 1989, and I have never fed hay. I once had over 250 cages of rabbits and never fed hay. Yeah, you don't absolutely have to. All right, Verna's leaving. Says, blessings all late for my other stream. Get to it, Verna. Thanks for joining us tonight. You have a good evening. Joe Sandy says, okay, thanks, Chris and everybody. I'm just trying to get my ducks in a row before I jump into this. No problem, anytime. Let's see. Emma says, that's it. I'm looking for rabbits. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. David Ramirez says, what's your day job, Chris? You remind me of my high school math teacher. Well, I am not a high school math teacher. I would not be a good high school teacher, I don't think. I think I would lose patience and be like, what's wrong with you guys? Quit, talking, pay attention, anyway. And I probably wouldn't teach math either, but I'm actually not terrible at math. I mean, I understand. I wouldn't say I'm the best at math, but I understand. I took pretty advanced math courses when I was in school, and I get the order of operations and all that, which I think a lot of people don't get, which kind of bugs me sometimes because anyway. I actually right now, I spent 30 years in the call center business. I was an account manager, not for 30 years, but the account management was the last position I held there. Not an accountant, account manager. So I dealt with the client company relationship. So I was kind of the go-to when the client had things, they came to me anyway. But for the last going on a little about a year and a half, I quit that job and moved to another position as a data analyst. So I got hired in as a data analyst, but it's a pretty small company. So they really, my title is data analyst. I do a lot of reporting, Power BI primarily, working with SQL to pull data from a database. But I've gotten pushed into a lot more development type work where I create forms in our like EHR, electronic health record. Do some like stored procedures in SQL and stuff to get those things to run and all. So it's a little bit more development work too. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of primarily what I do now. Joe Sandy says, do you have to clip rabbits' nails in general? I hate doing that. No, I don't ever clip my rabbit's nails. Now, if you have a pet rabbit, it may be something that you want to do from time to time, just because, like I said, they do, if you're carrying them around a lot and they kick it all, their nails can get pretty sharp. So it may be best. It just depends, honestly. But I don't ever clip my rabbit's nails. Andy says, rabbits like to eat hay, but don't have to have it to live. You're right. They don't. Joe Sandy says to him, sorry, it's my fault. My fault that you want to get rabbits. Probably is partially, huh? Life Done Cheap with Lee says, I'm expecting my first kits on Easter Day. Well, good luck. Hopefully that goes well. That's exciting. Andy Rabbit says, I thought Emma had rabbits already. I kind of did too, but I guess we were wrong. Sax Place says, hitting the shower, getting up early for a trip tomorrow. Thanks, Chris. And all have a good evening. Well, you have a good evening as well. Good luck on your trip tomorrow. Hopefully that goes well. Buck Reynolds says, if you're feeding your rabbits good pellets, they have all the fiber they need. I've been raising rabbits for 60 and ain't feed a bit of hay yet. Yep, I agree. Life Done Cheap with Lee says to Joe Sandy, I put a big flat piece of apple wood in with my rabbits and they scratch on it and it trims their nails down. That does help. I was going to say, yeah, definitely if you're putting in, if you've got like any kind of solid floor on there, a lot of times that's going to keep their nails worn down anyway, and you don't have to worry about it. But the only problem with a solid floor is it's going to get filled. You're going to have to clean it a lot. Joe Sandy says, if the pet rabbit people find out I'm keeping a rabbit outdoors, I'd be burned at the stake. Yeah, no kidding. I posted a video on the Nextdoor app because I had a couple of pit bulls coming out. I had the camera out there now. I don't know if I shared this on YouTube or not, but there were a couple of pit bulls that were out there harassing my rabbits. I went out one morning and because my alerts were going off on my phone. I'm like, what is going on? This was early morning, 4:30 in the morning. So I got up and I went outside to run them off, and that dog came at me like he was going to attack me. He stopped short and he turned around and ran off. But, there for a minute, I was like, I should have brought my pistol. I probably would have shot him had I had my pistol on me, because I was sure he was coming right at me. And I mean, he was coming at me. I knew that, but I was sure he was going to, get on me. I was backing up like, oh, I made a mistake here. But anyhow, he ran off, and I haven't seen him since. But I posted on Nextdoor like, hey, if this is your dogs, he was out there harassing my rabbits in the morning. They were last seen in this area of the town. And somebody said, are your rabbits okay out there in the cold? And I just responded, oh, yeah, they're fine. They got big fur coats on. Emma says, I did, Andy. I've had them since I was 5, but haven't had them for the last 2 to 3 years. I got distracted and wrapped up in quail. Yeah, it happens. I've been there too. Andy Rabbit says, a lot of time I believe the reason Rex rabbits get sore hocks is from long nails. It makes their feet sit differently on the wire. There could be something to that. Yeah, I mean, there definitely could. Dawn says, why are you putting in the rabbit's cage for their nest box straw or hay? I use straw for the nest box. I actually, I use wire nest boxes, but I line it with cardboard, and then I just stuff it full of straw. Andy says to Emma, did you get 2 California bucks? Dawn says, pepper spray is funny to get mean dogs with. Yeah, I don't know that this dog was mean. I think what it was they were just wound up going after the rabbits, and I was all of a sudden there. I mean, I didn't startle him necessarily. I just walked out of the fence, was like, hey, get out here. And he come running around there. And like I said, he stopped short. It was like he realized, oh, that's a person. That's not okay, got to go. And he took off. I don't think he was necessarily mean. It's probably good I didn't have my pistol, because I may have shot that dog. But yeah, it's good that I didn't have to. Andy Rabbit says, I use hay in a nest box, and that's because I can't buy a bale, or I can buy a bale for $5. Yeah, that's that's a good price. Joe Sandy says, gotta say once again, I love that shirt. Oh yeah, surely not everybody is kung fu fighting. It's a great one. Emma Ball says, no, Andy, I think you may have me mixed up with someone else. No California Bucks for you. I don't know who it was. I remember hearing about that too. Wiggum, is that how you pronounce it? It says, seems you are talking about rabbits, but wanted to say, I just started with quail and built your coop. They seem to be doing well. Thanks. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. That coop's worked out really well. I've got 2 hutches like that, and they worked out really well for me. So glad to hear that they're working out for you too. It's pretty convenient for me. I've got the sandbox in one side that gives them the windbreak, the place to get out of the wind. It works summer, winter, no real changes to it, time over time. They lay pretty much all their eggs in the sandbox, and they come out super clean. It's just easy. All right. Let's see. Andy Rabbit says, I think I'm getting dog sick. I was looking on the Dog Pound website today. Yeah, I do that from time to time. I like the Humane Society here, their Facebook page, it pops up in my feed on Facebook, and I always see these dogs. I'm like, oh, look at that dog. But then I realize I've got a dog. I don't need to. Joe Sandy says, double yolk eggs will not hatch, right? Yeah, it's highly unlikely that they'll hatch. And if they do, you probably end up with problems. You're best just not even trying to incubate them. You say, I remove them before I set my eggs. Yeah, that's really best practice, is just take them out. Don't even try to incubate them, because you're probably, if they do hatch, you're probably going to end up with some kind of issues with them or something like that. Warchild says, hey, hello to all. He says, hi all. Hello to you too. Emma says, last rabbits I had were mini Rex for pets. I've not bred for meat, but I have asked before now. But I have asked before now about that. Okay. So you've asked about breeding for meat, maybe? I don't know. Maybe that's what you're saying, but Alan says, do you have a video tutorial on how you built your quail coop? Yeah. I've got a couple, maybe 2, but at least one. It was like building a new quail hutch or something like that. If you look back through my videos, you should be able to find it. I did not, everybody wants plans. I didn't take plans. I don't build that way necessarily. I kind of have a basic idea, and then I just kind of build as I go. And it's not fine furniture. It's a quail hutch, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But yeah, there's the video on how I did it. It's not terribly complex. You can probably figure it out. Andy Rabbit says, I want another pitty, I think. Pit bulls, in my opinion, pit bull mixes, pit bulls in general, they're the best dogs. They're just, I love them. They're great. And they're short haired, so you don't have like all that huge amounts of dog hair everywhere. I mean, my dog does shed. I'm wearing a black shirt. There's probably some hair on it, but it's not terrible. And he's a pit bull mix, if you hadn't known. Let's see. Dawn says, Andy Rabbit, I'm still cleaning out dog supplies. As I do, I'm getting better with my knees. But when I know I can't get on my knees to bathe them, so off the dog stuff goes. Oh, that's unfortunate. I don't know that I think I'll probably always have a dog. I mean, I've just grown up with dogs. They're always, just part of the family. Life Done Cheap with Lee says, I have a few goose eggs in the incubator right now. Hopefully they all can hatch. Yeah, good luck. Hopefully they do hatch. Bill says, I'm going to cheat and call Winona Ranch for my cages. There's nothing wrong with that. Winona Ranch, they make some good cages. Joe Sandy says, if the do more cage is not much more than buying wire and clips and the tool, I'll probably just buy the cage. Yeah, and it saves you having to do the work. I mean, rabbit cages aren't terribly difficult to put together, but I mean, especially like as I get older, clipping all those wires, I mean, it's hard to do it all in one setting because my hands start cramping up. Not to mention the wire. I mean, when you go to clipping it, cutting it all, I mean, it always scratches me somewhere because that stuff ends up being pretty sharp. And I think it was, I don't know, maybe $30 or $40. I bought like 4 of them, and it was maybe like $40 more than what it would have been for me to buy all the wire and build them myself. And it saved me like at least a day's worth of work. So I figured it was worth $40 to not have to do that. I would have paid somebody $40 to cut all the wire and build them. Emma says, I love Chris's coop setup. When my current home setup gives up, it'll be what I go with. That extra gap up top I can see would be super handy for all the quail related stuff. Yeah, everybody, I get lots of questions. People wanting to know why I put, the roof so much higher, why I leave a gap. I do it on my rabbit cage hutch. I did it on my quail hutches. And to me, it just made sense. Well, I need somewhere to set things, whether it's the feeder, the water, the eggs that I'm collecting up, the whatever. I need somewhere to set stuff. And that's just how I do it. Andy says, my last 2 dogs were rescue pits, not from a shelter. They found me. Well, and I said, when I put Shiloh down 2 days before the quail con, I didn't want another dog, but I think I do. Yeah, it's only a matter of time. It takes a while to get over that stuff because it is heartbreaking to lose a dog. They don't live long enough for sure. But eventually you got to have another dog, right? We got our dog from the pound. He was a pup. I think it was $100, but he came neutered and microchipped. So, it's not bad. Don says, I've had dogs all my life until I ended up bedridden and had to rehome him. Now I can walk around. Don't want to have to ever do that again. It was worse than being bedridden. Yeah, I can imagine. That is horrible. I'm so sorry. Life Done Cheap with Lee says, I have 3 Dumore cages. I had to reinforce them. Plus, I had to oil the doors. Yeah, that is one thing. I mean, they are starting to rust a little bit at the doors where the little thing that opens and closes the doors, the little latch thing right there. Basically, there's kind of a hook type thing, like I don't know how to show that, like that. And there's a little rod that goes in there that holds the door closed and moves back and forth. That thing, the paint's pretty much rubbed off and it's starting to rust a little bit. So I probably need to paint it again to keep it from rusting away. Joe Sandy says, I'm afraid of that rabbit virus going around. I'm not really sure if that's a big issue or not. I mean, I know there are some things with it, but I don't know that it's anywhere near me. I've never had any issues. Joe Sandy says, maybe it's not that big of a thing, but there's YouTube videos all over about it now. Yeah, sometimes those people are just looking for views or something and sensationalizing things, but I don't know how big of a deal it is. Don says to Joe Sandy, I heard that virus is through getting rabbits at the stores. Yeah, that's definitely higher likelihood there. Joe Sandy says, I heard it's from wild rabbits. Could be. I don't know that it's that big of an issue, but let's see. Anthony says, just pulled the last of the quail for the incubator, 50% hatch rate for my first hatch from Meyer Hatchery. I have another 55 coming this week. Well, that's pretty good for a first hatch. And shipped eggs too. So not bad. Congratulations. Andy Rabbit says, I guess I have to get a name and then got to find a dog to fit that name. Yeah. Doing it backwards, huh? Get Gooder says, what temperature or time of year do you stop breeding does? Talking about rabbits. Usually I probably will get maybe one more breeding out of them, usually around mid-May when it starts getting up where it's consistently 85 degrees or higher. I usually stop breeding them for the summer. Now, I may go ahead and try to breed the Tamuks all summer long. We'll see how that goes because they are bred specifically to be heat-tolerant rabbits. We'll see how they do in the summertime. I haven't had them yet then, so I may go ahead and breed them again during the summer. I don't know yet. We'll find out. All right, we got 2 minutes left. We're about out of time. So if you got something else you want to talk about, get it in there pretty quick because, like I said, only 2 minutes left. Then I got to wrap this one up. But I do have, let's see, tomorrow, I think, is the day that I've got to go go check for nest box availability for my Tamuk doe. We'll see. I've got to check I can check it later, I suppose, but no chat's coming in, so I'll let you guys watch me check it. Let's see, where is that? There we go. That's what I wanted. It is, tomorrow. Tomorrow we're checking for nesting, nest box readiness for the Tamuk doe. And we'll see if she's ready for her nest box. Probably mid to late next week, she'll have her babies. Get Gooder says, okay, thank you. Love you, homie. Well, thank you so much. Love you guys too. Life Done Cheap with Lee says, thanks for doing this live. First time being on here. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate that. Joe Sandy, thank you, Chris, and everybody. Have a great evening. You too. Let's see. Bill Cox says, how many jumbo eggs will your Brincy Brincy, yeah, Brincy hatch. I don't remember now. I think it's somewhere like 100, a little over 100. I mean, it holds quite a bit. Zora said, maybe it's 120 or somewhere around in there that it would hold. I'm getting into quail. Okay, this is Zora. I'm getting into quail in 2 weeks. Local breeder said $8 per dozen eggs or $2 per chick. I ordered 50 eggs to start the quail hobby. Best idea with a question mark. Yeah, I mean, if you've never hatched before, if you've got an incubator though, yeah, why not? You can get them locally, and that's not bad price. That's a good price. So why not? Go ahead and do it and try it. Don says, how are you keeping track of your litters? Is it like Quail Hatchkeeper software? No, I'm not that. I don't really keep that much track of them. I just breed whenever. I mean, I don't really do much. I have these videos I can reference back. Like when I'm checking to see if I do make notes. I just have the reminder app on my phone. It's a stock app that came on it. And I'll just set a reminder on there. Oh, check for nest box availability in 25 days from breeding. Let's see. All right, guys, we got to wrap this one up. I'm sorry if I did not get to your comment today or your chat, because there's a couple of them still coming in, but I got to wrap it up. I got to go spend a few minutes with my wife before we go to bed so we can get up and go to work tomorrow. And actually, I have tomorrow off. I got to run errands tomorrow. So I got to go to the doctor. Not doctor. I got to go get blood work done in the morning. I got to do, what else? There's a couple things I got to do. I got to go. Okay, dog goes to the vet. Anyway, there's a couple things. So I just took a day off to do it all. So anyway, hopefully you guys have a great weekend, I should say. We should see you back here next Thursday. Don't see any reason why I won't be. And until then, as always, God bless.